Welcome back, TLG. This is a really exciting time of year. I'm amped up for these playoffs, even though I'm probably not going to be in them. I've had a down year, but there's some really cool storylines going on right now in TLG. Some real things to get excited about. I'd say number one, we'll start off most of all, is this Colorado Rockies team. I was just looking at them. The Rockies are a team that is going to have a real good chance here to tie the win record or beat it. They pretty much should have shattered it, but they've had as disastrous last couple months. They started the year just ridiculous, and they had a really slow July for their standards at 13-12, and then they took it up a notch and looked like they had the record back 24-3 there, and they should have had it for sure. But then they went 7-9 in September. They got beat 3 games in a row against Arizona, and they lost 2 in a row against Dodgers. So a 5-game losing streak for the team that right at the end of the year there, kind of choking it away. So it's going to be really tough. They have 12 games remaining. You see one in October here, and then I think 11 here. So they have 12 games remaining, and they have to win 9 to tie the record. The record in real life, I think, is 116 or 117 by the Mariners and the old Cubs. But Boston won 117 in TLG a couple years ago, but the record is actually 118 in TLG. That's 2022 LA Dodgers in TLG. They had powerhouse Walker Buehler, Dustin May as the two aces, a couple other really good arms. Then they had Gavin Lux, Corey Seager, Mookie Betts, Cody Bellinger, just absolute loaded roster. Really good team. So they smashed a bunch of runs that year and scored 118 wins, I think they got. So 118, so 12 games remaining for Colorado. They're at 109, so they have to win 9 out of 12 to tie the record, 10 to get it to 119 to have the all-time record to themselves. So that's going to be really tough. Arizona just beat them, like I said, last 3 out of 4 last time, so they have 4 games against them, and then they have 3 against a pretty solid Cleveland team, some really good players. Houston's a really good team in first place, so they got 2 against them. Then they have to finish the year with their toughest opponent, pretty much, in my opinion, the second best team in baseball is San Francisco Giants. The Giants, giving them about 500 baseball a year, I think Jake said the other day on Slack. So it looks like that's going to be a really tough task. They're going to have to win 10 out of 12 to get the record, 9 out of 10 to tie it. So that's going to really be interesting. Something to watch out. There's only 2 more sims, so I thought the year really kind of passed me by pretty quickly. I've been busy with work, so haven't paid as close attention as I have in other years. I've still been kind of grinding it, but yeah, I didn't realize there's only 2 sims left, so I thought I'd make this right away here. That's a really exciting storyline to look over here. The next most exciting, in my opinion, is probably, or even more exciting, just because that's just a kind of meaningless record, but at the end of the day, they're in the playoffs anyways. The real important one, though, is Boston and Toronto in the wild card races. So, Boston and Toronto here at 96, 94 wins. Toronto has been so good for a couple years now. If you look at, let's go to their history here. If you look at Toronto's history, they've really been in a tough place in the division with Boston. So Boston's really won the division almost every year. Toronto won 100 games back in the day, and then with Flaherty and I think they traded for Flaherty maybe that was the year after, but they had some really good players, Vladdy and Bichette and all those guys early on. Then they had a couple down years, and then we got the new GM here, and he took over and has been really solid. They've won 89, 91, 90, and 94, and probably going to win a bunch more in 94 this year. So that's the last 4 years have been really good. I think they got screwed out of the wild card last year. They did not reach the playoffs last year at 90 and 72, which is heartbreaking. They made it the year a couple years before that with 89 wins. So this year they're in though. They are fighting for that division crown, so they don't have to play that wild card round with Boston. Really good matchup there. We've gone over Boston a bunch of times, so those 2 teams are really good. There's a couple of really standout years. They got 23 home runs so far out of their catcher, 36 home runs out of their second baseman there with 45 contact, but big power bat and nice eye combo. A couple of really big bats in that lineup. One of the most historically good outfielders trios of all time. Grisham, Vallejo, and Shepard got literally almost 18 WAR or something combined. Shepard was the kingpin, almost 7 WAR, hitting 320 with 40 home runs there. Just ridiculous. Grisham moved over to left field this year. He's even better in center. Huge range, really good bat. So he had almost 200 ISO. He stole a couple bases there, hit a bunch of home runs, a bunch of doubles. He 3.1 WAR so far, really good hit out of him. And then Vallejo was a beast this year. 4 WAR, 35 home runs, 270 batting average, 135 OPS plus. So that trio in the outfield is just monstrous with the middle of the field bats they have too there, and the catcher Marino, and then second baseman with 36 home runs. So you have 59 home runs out of your catcher and second baseman. That's pretty impressive, especially when you have a couple of 80 range shortstops. Just a ridiculous team here. I think Calais is actually a shortstop with 80 range, so he's playing some center now. But just a really well put together baseball team, and a couple of huge bats on top of that with Rizzo and Guerrero. So they have just scored a ton of runs here. They lead the league in slugging percentage. All those big bats, 32 leading the AL in WAR there. So really, first in home runs, 262. That is a lot more than Colorado, who's in first place now with 242. So Toronto's bats are just unreal. A ton of power in that lineup, and really good. When you're that good of an offense, and then your first earned run average from your pitcher side of things, opponent's batting average 228. The lowest BAP in the league, elite defense. So it's just an incredible, well put together baseball team. They've just been consistent all season. They started a little slow at 15-12 in the April there, but then every month since they've just pretty much gotten better and better and just been really good. So it would be a really interesting matchup there. And Boston is their usual selves, just really, really good too. Boston's first in batting average, first in hits, real ton of contact. They're right behind Toronto there in the on base and slugging and all that stuff. And then pitching wise, they're right behind. They're first in home runs allowed there and first in pitcher WAR. So just a really elite. Both those squads are just ridiculously good. So it's going to be interesting to see who wins that division. The other team will be the first wild card seed. Then you got Chicago really ran away with things in the Central. The next most exciting thing is definitely, or again, maybe the most exciting, who knows, but this division race is just crazy. You got 4 teams still in the running. The Astros look like they have a pretty good shot to pull away with it. The Rangers kind of choked division away last. It was going to be close, but then Houston won an 8-2 run and Texas won a 3-7 run. So that's separated. It was real close until then, just split by a game or two. But looks like with that last sim, unless one of those teams actually shits the bed, or the other one just like is unstoppable, wins like 12 in a row, that Houston will probably win that division. And then the other wildcard teams look like they're both going to come from the AL West. So right now you have Texas, Oakland, and the Angels. 3 in a row there fighting for 2 spots. So it's going to be really tough. One of those teams is not going to make it, unfortunately, and it's going to be a real sting there. So the Angels were up there all year. They really choked too. They've lost 5 in a row at the most important time of the season. So they really got to turn on the Jets there. They're only 1 game behind the 3rd seed, though. So they're right in there still. So it's going to be a real big battle between all those division teams. So we're going to look at their schedules here. The LA team here plays a couple against Seattle, which are pretty winnable. That's really going to come down to these Texas games. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games against Texas left. So that's going to be monstrous and important there. And we'll see Texas obviously kind of the same thing. They're playing a bunch against the Angels, and then they have Oakland, which is another huge series. They have 3 against Twins, which should be winnable. That should give them should be able to get 2 wins out of that with Minnesota rebuilding, but who knows with baseball sometimes. And then the other team you have Oakland. And if you guys remember, Oakland's actually a team that snuck in the playoffs last year. I'm pretty sure or was it Houston that snuck in right ahead of Toronto there, the 91 wins. So Oakland finishes the year with 3 against Cleveland, a really good team, 3 against a really good Atlanta team, 3 against a really solid Texas team that's obviously fighting for the playoff lives there, and then you get 3 against division-leading Houston. So that's pretty tough. That's going to be a tough one for Oakland. So from the looks of it, this division's really probably going to come down, and that's a lot of games against the Angels too for Oakland actually. So the Angels have all really important games here. So the Angels have 4 in a row here, 4 games set against Oakland at the end of this sim, and then they finish off the year against LA too. So it's going to be really, really interesting. That's something definitely the number one thing to keep an eye out. So those 3 things combined are just really exciting. Looks like the NL is a little bit more solid. The only real race we have in the NL left is the wild card number 3 spot. So same thing, unless St. Louis really shits the bed here and loses most of their games. Looks like Giants and St. Louis will lock up 1 and 2 seats. It looks like Arizona and the Cincinnati Reds are going to be really battling for that 3rd seed. The Arizona is quite a leg up right now. They're 3 up, but they also have a couple games against Colorado, which is a really good baseball team. They have 5 against San Diego, which is decently winnable, rebuilding team there. But 4 against Colorado is going to be real tough to even win 1 or 2 of those. And then they finish off with their arch enemy, the Dodgers there. So that's going to be an interesting one. Then we'll just finish off by looking at the Cincinnati Reds schedule here. The Reds have a real tough one with 6 games against a really good Pittsburgh team. But Pittsburgh kind of has the division pretty much in hand now, so they might be resting their starters, but we'll see. Probably not this sim, so they're going to have 4 real tough games. But then you have the Cubs and Dodgers, which are teams that aren't playoff teams right now, so it'll be interesting. 6 games against Pittsburgh is real tough. So Arizona with a bunch against Colorado, and then you get Cincy with the 6 games against Pittsburgh is going to be a tough finish. So that'll be a good battle there. I'd have to imagine statistically Arizona's quite a leg up. If you're 3 up with only 12 to go, that's a pretty good advantage. It essentially means the other team has to win like 4 more than you. So those are the battles in hand. We'll keep an eye on them throughout. And then the other thing is some of these really good awards races. I haven't made a video yet this year on the awards races like I usually do. Like I said, I've been really busy working a ton of 15-hour work shifts the last couple weeks every day. So been really grinding there. So haven't really looked at these awards super closely in the last couple months. I noticed yesterday looking, probably the number one thing that stood out to me, which was super exciting, is this catcher season for Detroit. He's one of my favorite players in TLG. He was like a real late pick by Alex in Pittsburgh there. I mean, a stellar late draft selection. I can't remember if he just progressed a lot. It was like a 12th rounder or just had a bunch of a TCR or what happened. But yeah, just got a ton better. His contact went from like 35 to 50. His power was 40, 50, which is always pretty good. Went up to 60. And then his eye got way better. So he got 30, 45 back in the day. Now it's a 55. So just a fantastic catcher power bat. There's very few catchers that look this good offensively. And this year he just broke out in a huge way. He's always been really solid. I remember making a video back in the day. I ranked him as about the 7th best catcher in TLG a couple years ago, and I caught some flack. Alex, I didn't have Marino on there, his boy there, and really good catcher. But I just figured I always like Garina or whatever you say his name. But this year he just blew everybody's expectations out. He doubled up his best career WAR season, and just was absolutely ridiculous. 31 home runs. He had 11% walk rate, which is amazing for a catcher. 150 OPS plus. That's right up there with like some of the best catcher seasons of all time, like a Mike Piazza type stuff. It's right up there with like JT Realmuto's best seasons ever. And a bunch of those absolute superstars. Pudge Rodriguez probably hasn't had too many seasons like that. So just a ridiculous, ridiculous season. And I think best of all, when I messaged Chad there about it, I think he said he actually found somewhere on Stats Plus where it said he had 5 or 6 grand slams this season or something ridiculous. I think it was 5, but just incredible. Oh, that makes sense because yeah, that's how I noticed them because I was looking at the awards for combined here, and I looked all the way down to WPA, wins probability, which is one of the most underrated stats in all sports. Really takes into effect kind of like the clutchness rating, and he is number 3 in the league. He's ahead of Zach Veen, Pena, and Poisson. So a catcher from Detroit just. Really flew under the radar probably for a lot of us because he was on a Detroit team that didn't do too well this year. And so you look at his stats, 301 ISO, just 280 batting average, just absolutely incredible. High leadership, low greed too. So he locked him up at 18 mil, which with this season he's well worth it. That's a lot of money for a small budget team, but 18 million for a guy that puts up 6 WAR catcher is definitely worth it, especially a guy that's a really solid defensively too. 65 catcher defense, just incredible. So one of the best players DLG. You have to say, like, I don't care if they're like the last place team, you have to think he didn't be in the running for MVP. Just it's so rare to get that kind of production of a catcher. It's just incredible. So really, really cool season out of him. And then yeah, just the award season. We'll probably do a more in-depth episode. I'll probably do like a rookie of the year race and a couple MVP races, like in the videos I've done in the past on my day off Sunday. I think just to give a real quick preview, I'd have to imagine if you look just like at the WAR ratings and stuff, Bellinger's really running away with the AL MVP there. 8.5 WAR, knowing the AL is close. Boston's Mike Trout's closest at 6.9, so he's cleared him by almost 2 WAR there. Just a ridiculous season. Bellinger just not seem to want to fall off. He's 33 years old still, so he probably has a few really elite seasons left at least. The dude just put up another banger season. Another 50 home run season back to back here in Houston. Just ridiculous. Led the league 2 years in a row at 48 and 44, and then put up 58 and 52. Just insane. It's just so many home runs. So that's going to lead the league again there. And his teammate Pena actually stole it from last year, 59, one more. So essentially, that's 4 years in a row that Bellinger would have led the AL in home runs if he had one more last season to tie Pena. And then his boy Pena's right behind him. So those Bash Bros, man, that's 100 home runs pretty much again. Just ridiculous, ridiculous production. And then you get obviously the Colorado guys finishing with top 4 there in batting average. And I think they had like 7 and 8 too. At one point a couple weeks ago, they had all the top 6. They had Teague was right up there like 330 and someone else. So just insane. LA had one of the best offensive seasons you'll ever see. LA had a 330 ISO with an 8% strikeout rate. Just incredible, incredible season. Missed a few weeks with injury. Just insane. The other coolest thing about Colorado is they're actually going to 4 guys with 200 hits. I'd have to imagine Weber here will probably get 9 hits in 12 games if he plays them all. But definitely have 3 guys. So Fabian, Thomas, and Veen. Just insane. All 3 really solid corner outfielders. Fabian is DH'd a lot this year, but just insane. 137 runs already with 12 games to go. Over 50 doubles already. LSDLB is a really cool season too. Jeff Teague is just ridiculous. Shortstop, 75 range, and he's like 3rd in the league in doubles. Only strikes out 11% of the time. Just incredible bat, even though he doesn't have a ton of power. And then on the pitching side of things, league leaders, you got some really cool seasons. Not quite as high WAR totals as in years past. So Kyle Wright's actually going to lead the league in WAR by quite a bit here, and that's back-to-back years for him. He's insane. He looks like he's got a good chance to win that Cy Young, but Isaac Cascada has really turned it on lately too. I think Kyle Wright would have locked up 100%, but he actually had back-to-back losses recently. One against Arizona and so one against Houston, two really good teams. So he had a chance to be like 20-0. So now he's going to be fighting there. Still an incredible record, but yeah, that battle is going to be pretty close between those two guys. I think they've kind of separated themselves by quite a bit. We'll look more into the stats later, but Patino's kind of third place there in the NL, it looks like. And then in the AL, you have a really couple stud seasons. You got Maxwell's just turned into a star. Solidified himself as an ace after 4 WAR season last year to kind of knock down the door, being like a top 10 pitcher in baseball. And now he's knocking right in the door, being like a top 5 guy. Just incredible profile for a young guy. Amazing pitcher there. And then you have Victor Cantu, an incredible pitcher. He just went up in control for my scout. He was like a 45-60 guy when he debuted there, I think, or 50, and now he's up to 55-65. So a lefty with that kind of curveball and high velocity, and is just good at everything he does. Only 1.02 FIP this year. It's incredible. 198 batting average against him. An amazing season out of the Texas lefty. And then Soroka still, even with his old age, he's lost some stuff compared to when he was younger, just a little bit down 5. But his movement and control are just so elite. He's still hanging in there. He's such a good vet. He's only 31. He feels a lot older, but he is very young when TLG starts. So still might have a couple of years if he doesn't keep falling off. He is fragile too. So we'll see. Keep an eye on that stuff. Make sure he doesn't lose it. And then the real cool thing I've noticed here was there's one more thing, actually. Velasquez has one of the weirdest seasons I've ever seen. This guy really essentially can only play in like 3 ballparks in baseball, or else he's going to let up like 2 home runs per 9 and be useless. San Francisco is one of those stadiums that are so good in home run prevention. And then he had a season, so he only had a .89 whip, which is like Cy Young contention. But then he let up 1.5 home runs per 9. His ratios were insane, K to BB. Some of the best in the league. The 3 is so elite. That's like right up there with like the 70, 75 control guys. So only walking 3% of batters, 3 out of 100. And then his strikeout rate is ridiculous. That 30% strikeout rate is so insane. So this guy, if he didn't let up home runs, he would be by far the best pitcher in baseball. But the low movement makes him really good at home. But if he plays a road game, especially a home run stadium, like you look, they played Cincinnati, and that's a real heavy home run hitters park. 5.2 innings, let 4 home runs in 1 appearance. But then he goes back home against Colorado, goes 7 innings, lets up 2 earned runs against the best lineup like ever offensively. And then he goes plays in St. Louis, another pitcher's park, 8 innings, 0 runs, 10 strikeouts, 2 walks, 0 home runs. And then he plays against Arizona, 7 innings, 1 earned run, 0 walks, 9 strikeouts. So really incredible splits when it comes to like home away or pitcher's park and not. So you almost just can't play him in a couple stadiums like probably my stadium in Cincinnati and a couple of those big hitters parks like Baltimore. But then you play him in all those pitchers parks or some of the neutral parks, and he's just absolutely dominant. Looks like the best pitcher in baseball. So a really weird player. 3.5 WAR, but it's hard to judge him based on that. Like a real matchup specific guy. Like if you're playing at Coors in the playoffs, that's gonna be a real tough matchup for him. Probably want to save him for those home games. But yeah, really interesting player for sure. Next up is these 2 young guys, or 4 young guys essentially. Everybody that's on the leader of these strikeouts is young. You got Russell at 26, Maxwell 27. Massey's actually 28 now, which is interesting. Barrier's only 24, and then the 2 league leaders are 22 and 24 years old, so some monster young power arms. Jim Spar leading the way with a ton of strikeouts, struck out 31% of guys. That's the elite starting pitchers that have like 65, 70 stuff, sit around 30% K rate. That's where your Nate Pearsons of the world, like 75 stuff, and Jim Spar and those guys. Incredible for a starting pitcher to have 30% K rate. So strikes out a third of his batters. Really went on fire down the stretch here. Was not quite as good. Got beat up a few times at the start and the middle of the season. Then late here, as you can see, 8 innings, 1 earned run, 6 innings, 0 runs, 7 innings, 1 run. The last 3 starts, just double-digit strikeout numbers in almost all these starts. Just incredible. Really finishing off strong. And then you got Perez here. It's just insane. So last year's 21-year-old. He struck out 25% of batters and then had 3 WAR, and then the season up to 29, let up a few more home runs, so the WAR wasn't much higher, but really effective season back-to-back. He's still 20 away from his slider potential. So this guy really is really nasty. He's just like a less ridiculous version of that Velasquez guy. He's probably a little bit better, in my opinion. He has 15 higher movement. Velasquez, like I just looked at, it's like 25 movement. This guy's 40. Both guys have heavy stuff and control ratings, so just a really talented pitcher there. Russell's a reliever with 200 strikeouts, which is just crazy. 76 appearances, 124 innings, dude had 2 WARs, a reliever, 38% strikeout rate, just incredible power arm there. So yeah, some interesting numbers throughout the league there. So I'll save the rookie of the year and that stuff for the next video, but I thought this would be a lot of fun to do before these last 2 sims and give everybody something to watch for in them. These really cool division races. The playoffs are going to be a grind to see who gets in for these last few spots. Love to see Cincinnati, by the way. I know we talked about them earlier. I hadn't gone on their history. They had a major rebuild phase. That is a really the toughest one to start off with, and I'd say out of all the teams in out of the park. Some bad contracts, really heavy, high-priced guys when they start. So he's built them up really well there. You got a really solid team. He's been loyal since the start there. Year by year, we got 65, 62, 69. So 3 years in a row in the 60s. Then he jumped up to 76 wins. Then back down to 60 and 64. And then we're up to 77 there. And then back down to 63 last year in a rough year with a lot of injuries. And then back up to 78 this year. So the best in TLG so far are the Reds, and it looks like they're going to easily be able to crack 80. So really love to see them get in the playoffs, even though my other boy there, my boy Gamma, is the guy he's fighting against. So whoever makes it, it's exciting for them for sure. It's too bad both those teams can make it in, but it looks like it's going to come down to those two in the NL. That's it for this episode. See you guys.